Hi everyone, so today we're doing a slightly different video and it's a cooking video, but the difference is it's not going to be a kind of healthy, good for you recipe. It's a really decadent chocolate cake, so it's probably really not very good for you, but you have to have things that aren't very good for you sometimes, and it tastes amazing and it's really easy to make and it just looks really impressive. So the basic concept of this cake, it's a flourless chocolate cake, which is what it sounds like. You don't use any flour in it, so it doesn't have that kind of classic cake texture. It's very dense, very moist, and it's a very sort of intense flavoured cake. And I stumbled across a recipe for this cake when I was trying to make my boyfriend's a birthday cake, and his favourite cake was always a kind of really dense chocolate cake, but we could never find the right recipe until this one, and I've made it loads of times. It's really easy to make and it tastes really amazing. And if you use dark chocolate as opposed to milk chocolate, then that will guarantee that this cake is completely gluten free if you have got any problems with that. I haven't, and I use milk chocolate for it, just because I feel like if you use dark chocolate, because it's such a dense, intense flavour, then dark chocolate can kind of make it a little bit too rich, and it is a very rich cake anyway. So I use milk chocolate, and not all milk chocolates can guarantee that they're 100% gluten free. So if you are worried about that, make sure you pick a good, completely guaranteed gluten free dark chocolate, and then that's really easy to ensure that you're not getting any gluten in there. Another thing to note is that it's really quick to make. It takes about 15 minutes preparation, and then you need to just cook it for 30 minutes, so it's really quick and you can just kind of do it in advance because it keeps really well. So two things that you want to make sure you do. You want to preheat your oven to 150 Celsius, and you want to do that while you're kind of doing all your preparations. Then the other thing to remember is the cake tin that you use. This one right here is a 20cm loose bottom cake tin. You can use a cake tin that's not loose bottom. I have done that before on numerous occasions. It does work fine if you grease it properly, and it will come out and it won't break. It's just, it makes life a lot easier if you use a loose bottom tin, and make sure it's not a particularly deep one. This one right here is a deep sandwich pan with a loose base, but as you can see, it's not really deep. So you want the cake to sort of come till about there inside the tin. Then also you want to make sure that you grease your pan with some unsalted butter, like I'm going to do. The easiest way to do that is to just use the wrapper of the butter that you're going to use for the cake, which you'll see in a little bit when I talk about the ingredients. You're going to need to just wipe it over, make sure you cover all bases, and then dust it with a little bit of cocoa powder. You can use icing sugar, but the reason I use cocoa powder is because it just doesn't leave any white marks on the cake, and it just makes it a lot easier to do it that way. So that's all the kind of info you need about the cake, and we're now going to move on and show you the recipe and what you're going to need. So now we're on to what you're going to need to make this cake. So in terms of ingredients, as I said to begin with, milk chocolate is what I'm using, but you can use whatever chocolate you like. 200 grams of chocolate. You want 120 to go in the cake, and the other 80 grams we're going to garnish the cake with afterwards, but 120 grams in the cake. Break it up into small pieces so it melts a little easier. Then 80 grams of cocoa, whatever cocoa powder you want, 3 eggs, which we will beat soon, and then we've got 120 grams of plain unsalted butter and 120 grams of caster sugar. Make sure you use caster sugar and not regular sugar, because the granules in caster sugar are much smaller and they kind of melt a little bit easier. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And this is the tin, which I have already greased and dusted with a little bit of cocoa powder. Not the most even attempt, but it works fine. I always do it like that. So that's what you're going to need for the cake, and I've got the oven preheated, and now we're going to go on with the next step, which is to melt the butter and the chocolate. The easiest way to do it, in my opinion, is to just boil some water in the kettle and then double boil it in a kind of heat-proof bowl over the top. I know a lot of people like to do it in the microwave. I haven't mastered the skill of doing it in the microwave. I generally tend to burn it, so it's the easier way for me is to just do it over a bowl. So I'm going to show you what the next part is. So now I'm just going to pour the boiling water from the kettle into a pan. You want to make sure that the pan is smaller than the bowl you're going to sit over the top of it, and then I'm just going to put this heat-proof bowl in with the chocolate and the butter and just let that melt, stirring trying it.
So now we're going to move on to the eggs. And there I was thinking I was doing a really good job at this. And I said to my boyfriend, who is very kindly filming me now, am I doing it like Nigella Lawson? And he just said, no. So obviously I'm nowhere near as good as I thought I was. But I'm just going to crack 3 eggs into a bowl, like so. Obviously you know how to crack an egg, but you laughing isn't helping. Right. So far I've managed to do it without getting any shelling. So let's hope. And there we go, 3 eggs with no shells. So yeah, we've cracked the eggs and I'm now just going to beat them. You don't need to beat them kind of too much. So it's kind of like, you know, really, really beaten, but just make sure that they're kind of an even mixture. Just make sure that you haven't got too much yolkage going on. But yeah, considering you just said I'm not Nigella Lawson, I think in the comments below you should let me know if you think he should have any cake for that comment or not. Because I think Nigella Lawson's one of the sexiest women ever. And I want to be like Nigella Lawson, so...
Sorry, you just weren't having sex with your food, literally.
Yeah, well... Let me know in the comments below, do you think he's a nice enough boyfriend that deserves to have any of this delicious cake? Or shall I just eat it all myself? Right, there we go, the eggs are kind of done. You just want to make sure that it's an even texture. And then don't beat them too much, you don't want to get too much air into it. So now this has started melting and you can see that the butter always kind of melts a little bit first and the chocolate takes a little bit longer. But you just want to give it a quick mix every now and then. I'm just using a wooden spoon, you can use a kind of plastic spatula. But you just want to give it a little mix every now and then to make sure that it's melting evenly. So this is pretty much almost melted, as you can see, there's no lumps in it, it's just a smooth, chocolatey, fattening mixture. So I'm going to take this... Don't salivate. I'm going to take this off the heat now and we're going to prepare to mix the dry ingredients. So now I'm going to put the caster sugar in. You want to put the caster sugar in first because it's kind of the hardest texture, so it will melt because the chocolate's still really hot. And you just want to make sure that you mix it all in really well. I know it's a kind of cake that looks a little bit at first like it's really lumpy, but it doesn't. It mixes in fine and it's got a very gooey kind of jelly-like texture. But that's what makes it so moist, because it hasn't got any of the flour in it. But this is what your mixture should look like once you've got all the sugar in. I'm now going to move on to add the eggs in, and you want to just add them very slowly and then just kind of fold them in before you start mixing. So just kind of lift the mixture over the top of the eggs because you don't want the eggs to sort of cook in any way. This is what the mixture should look like when the eggs are almost pretty much done, and you can see it's got a very kind of jelly, almost chocolate yogurt like texture. So you just want to give it a sort of quick mix to make sure all the egg is mixed in, that you've got no kind of little parts where you've still got eggy bits, because that would be a bit gross. And then I'm going to add in the cocoa powder. This you want to do in separate stages because it can get a little bit messy. So add it a little bit at a time. Just kind of fold it in. And as I said, because it's got a very kind of jelly texture, it is hard to sort of mix the dry ingredients in. You have to sort of take your time and really just work it into the cake. So this is what it looks like when it's kind of all pretty much melted, and I'm going to add the next part, the cocoa powder, in a second. It just takes time, you have to sort of fold it around a lot because of the texture of the cake. So I'm now going to just add in the next bit, the last bit of cocoa powder. And just fold that in. So I've mixed pretty much all of the cocoa powder in now, and this is what it should look like. You can see if you kind of try and lift it up, it's kind of like a big gooey sort of concoction. But that's all our ingredients apart from the vanilla extract mixed in now, which I'm going to add in. So you just want a teaspoon of vanilla extract. You could use loads of other different extracts. Actually, I bet orange extract would be really nice with this. It'd kind of be like a Terry's chocolate orange cake. but just vanilla extract, a teaspoon, like that. And then just mix that in, and we're ready to move it into the tray in a minute. So now we're ready to move all the mixture into the greased and floured tray. So not floured, you know what I mean. Cocoed. Into the cocoed tray. But you just want to get all your mixture in. It can be quite hard to sort of get it out because it's so gooey. Try and get as much as you can out of the bowl. I thought you were trying to film me for a minute there. I was like, what are you doing? Okay. That's it. I'm not going to try and scoop that out. But that's what it should look like. Then you just want to kind of swirl it around a little bit. I know it looks like it's kind of got air bubbles in, but that's fine. It cooks perfectly. Just kind of give it a little swirl. You don't need it to be a particular shape. It kind of cooks very evenly. Just make sure it's not thicker at some parts. And there we go. So now the next part is to just put this into the oven and cook it for 30 minutes. Now make sure you've preheated your oven as well, like we mentioned at the beginning. I'm going to put it into the preheated oven on the middle of the top shelf and just leave it in there for 30 minutes. Make sure you time how long you put it in. Is that in the middle? I can't see. Yep. Make sure you time how long it's in there, and it's not the kind of cake that really you need to sort of come and check it. You can just leave it. So I'm just going to close the lid and leave it in there for 30 minutes. So now it has been 30 minutes and it's time to take the cake out. So I'm just going to turn my oven off, turn it off and get the cake out very carefully. And this is what the finished cake looks like. Now obviously we're going to jazz it up a little bit, but you want to get it out and let it cool for about 5 minutes before you attempt to get it out. So I'm now going to just lift it out of its tray, and you just want to kind of do it loosely like this, and then you've got the base at the bottom. And what I'm going to do is just move it onto a plate, and you just want to try and make sure that it's kind of not overlapped here. So I'm going to do that in a second and move it on to the plate from the base of the cake tin to just do that. So I've got it upside down on the plate, and I'm just going to loosen the bottom, and that's what it looks like. I've just got it upside down, but I'm now going to turn it back the right way around in a sec on another plate. Turn it upside down now, and there we go. Have the chocolate that we've saved previously, 80 grams of chocolate roughly, and I'm just going to put that back in the same bowl and melt it like so on its own. You don't need to put any butter. You could maybe put a little bit of cream if you like, but once the majority of the chocolate is pretty much melted, there's still a couple of lumps in here, so I'll just give it a couple more seconds. Then you can just take it off the heat and take it over to your cake. I'm now going to put the melted chocolate onto the cake. So you want to just try and get it into the centre as much as you can. Like so, a big dollop of it, and start spreading it over the cake. I'm just using the back of a big spoon to do this, but you could use a knife or whatever you want, really. So just get a big generous amount onto your spoon, and then just work it over the sides. Doesn't matter if you make a mess at this point. Just move it to another plate once it's all set. And there we go. Obviously you're going to have to let that set and then move it to a clean plate once it's set, because that doesn't look particularly pretty. But a few other things to note about this cake as well is that serving wise, the best way in my opinion to serve it, and I know that my boyfriend's going to disagree, is to serve it with fresh double cream just poured over the top. He thinks the nicest way to serve it is,
I'd say some ice cream with that toffee sauce.
With toffee sauce.
Oh.
I don't think the toffee sauce really tastes that great with chocolate, but that's just a personal thing. And the other thing that's really great about this cake is it warms up really, really well, doesn't it? It lasts really well too. It can last a good, I'd say probably a good 5-6 days. it lasts. Keep it somewhere obviously cool and dry and cover it up so it still stays moist, and it lasts a good 5 to 6 days. And also you can heat it up in the microwave for just a couple of seconds, 30 to 40 seconds, and then put ice cream or cream or whatever you want to put on it, and it's kind of like a really nice hot gooey cake with a cold side dish, so it kind of feels like a little bit of a restaurant treat. But that is it from us. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, then don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, and if you've got any other great cake recipes, then link them below. And yeah, I'll write everything down as well in the down bar for you, for those of you who just want it written down and find it easier to look at it that way. I'll write it all down, and I hope you enjoyed it. So all have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Don't forget the toffee sauce.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm also licking the melted chocolate, because that is what a true fatty at heart I am. But
Waste not, want not.
waste not, want not, exactly. I'll lick it so I don't have to wash up.
Like a dog. From a bowl.
Like a dog from the bowl, but isn't that seriously appetizing? Just pure melted chocolate.
You have that, I'll have this.
And it's probably about 6 years worth of calories, but who cares? Back to healthy eating after the weekend, right? Back to healthy eating after the weekend.
Yeah. I don't know, I might accompany this with one of my 800 calorie hot chocolates.
If you want to see a video about how to make the most fattening hot chocolate in the world, then leave a comment and let us know, and maybe I'll try and film that for you as well. But it's the most lovely hot chocolate, but it is super fattening.
Who's hot chocolate?
And yes, he makes it, and
I'm not making it.
A little clue: it has a whole big bar of dairy milk chocolate melted in it. It's like cardiac arrest in a mug.